Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. This week's guest is Bob Golding. In this episode he tells me about his wide-ranging voice career, how he likes to play Dame as a geezer in a dress, and we giggle a lot like schoolboys and even get told off by a neighbour for being up a little bit too late. So please sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast.
Have we started yet?
We will start now if you like.
Okay, sound check.
my guest for today's Panto podcast, or should I say this evening or late evening's Panto podcast, is
Yes.
Mr. Bob Golding.
Thank you. Well, I remembered my name then as well. Yes.
No, I didn't know if you would prefer Bob or Roberts.
Oh, my mother calls me Robert.
Well, let's hope you
And
don't
occasionally my
misbehave.
father if I've been naughty.
Roberts?
Yes, no. Bobby, anything.
Bobby.
Bobby, I can't speak.
What, Bobby?
I'm only on glass number 3. Hayden has this way. He says, I don't drink. Have another drink, Bob. No, lovely to be here, mate. Oh, what do I mean? I am always here. This is where I live.
Yes. On your lovely little boat.
Yes.
It's not little, is it? It's a big
It's
one.
quite a big boat, yeah. 70 foot long by 12.5 foot wide. 3 bedrooms, yeah.
Do you have a cat?
It's a home. We did have a cat, actually, and we were about to bring her here. We were in the transition from the last boat to this boat. And so she was staying at our, Nikki's, my wife's parents, and she got run over by a car.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
nice way to start the podcast.
There
I'm
we
so
go.
sorry.
Welcome to the Panto podcast. Dead cats. No, she was a gem. Betty Stardust. We loved her dearly. And I actually bought a star, and it's called Betty Stardust, and it's up there somewhere in the constellations.
Wonderful. Well, we've been laughing away for ages already.
Yes, we've peaked. So everything you hear now
Is
is going downhill. Yeah.
Were you a funny child then, Bob?
Oh no, and probably not. I'm sure my parents would disagree. But no, I wasn't really the funny kid at school. Definitely not. Actually, I was quite shy, quite quiet. Didn't really enjoy school. Very, hid away until someone introduced me to drama, and I went to the theatre. Actually, we haven't talked about this. I saw Bill Owen play Mother Goose at the Intimate Theatre in it's Palmer's Green, North East London, and it changed my life at that moment. I remember seeing him going, wow, that is brilliant. He's hilarious. It's hilarious. This whole genre is hilarious. It was a work stew for my dad's firm. My dad was an electrical engineer for a pharmaceutical company, and I was there with my little brother and just got really excited by this whole notion. I can't remember how old I was. I think I must have been about I want to say 9 or 10, and Bill Owen asked, does anyone know any jokes? And I said, I put my hand up and I went up, and I actually they picked me. I was one of like 5 or 6 kids, and I think the joke I told was, what's red and purple and blue and hairy's got 11 eyes and big fangs? And he says, I don't know. And I said, I don't know either, but it's crawling up your leg. And that was the joke, and it got me an apple and a signed photograph of Bill Owen, which I think I've still got somewhere in my old little makeup suitcase that I used to have when I was in the junior theatre group.
The photo, not the apple.
Not the apple. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, should clear that up now.
Sorry, had to get that in.
Hey, I set that one up.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll set them up, you knock them down.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, yes.
But Bill Owen, Panto, that must
Yes.
have been quite an experience after all, seeing him on telly.
Well, I think it was off the back of Last of the Summer Wine, although, a huge star in his own right through, playing Sergeant Majors mostly in comedy films, didn't he, really? Over the years, but
Carry
awesome.
on Nurse, wasn't he? As
Carry
well?
On Nurse, the Carry Ons, yeah, of course, the Carry Ons. Didn't he? He played an expectant father in one of them, didn't he? Was that one of them?
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh. Anyway, but yeah, he was brilliant as Mother Goose, and I thought, what a great thing to do. And around that time, my parents were a bit worried about me because I was quite shy. And if I went into a shop, I used to get my little brother to go up and pay for whatever it was that we had to buy, a magazine or whatever. And they wanted to get me out of my shell and said, "We'll go to a drama club after school." So I did, and that slowly started to work. And then I started to do more drama at school and end up doing a lot of Shakespeare. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Fell in love with it. In fact, I did at the same time as my dad, and he'd never really encompassed that whole kind of culture side of life. Really, could have been an electrician. He was just the son of another electrician who just got on and did his job. You know what I mean? From Enfield, and so I by proxy really invited him into the whole world of entertainment, and we went to see. Oh God, in the 80s we went to see. One of the big things that we loved was Fair Maid of the West by Thomas Hayward at the Mermaid Theatre on the South Bank. There, it's still a venue. I think it's a conference centre. But Bernard Miles ran it at the time, Lord Bernard Miles, and coincidentally, my dad was evacuated to his house during the war. The short story is my grandmother was on a train and talking to a friend saying, I just don't know where Vic is going to go, because they're all saying, look, you've got to send your kids out of London. And overheard by two actors, talking. One of them was Lord Bernard Miles, who said, well, he can come to my farm. I can't remember where it was now, Warwickshire. Anyway, Dad went up there for the duration of the war. And they had a little bit of a relationship with them, a friendship with them after the war, but then that all got, time took its toll and they severed it. But it was a weird link because no one else in my family is associated with the industry at all. So it was almost like a little kind of teaser for my dad for his son when I started to love theatre. And in that production of Fair Maid of the West was the greats. I mean, Sean Bean, Imelda Staunton, Pete Postlethwaite, the Simon Russell Beale. The list was, and it was a huge impression on me. And then, of course, we subscribed to the RSC and went along to everything. I remember a particular production of Twelfth Night. Stephen Moore as Sir Toby Belch just made such a huge impression on me. It was the sort of glory days of the RSC, if you will. And that made me convinced then. I was 15 by that time, and I'm going to be an actor. That's it. There's no turning back. There's nothing else I can do. And then I started to do productions with youth theatre companies. I won a few awards and drama festivals. Derek Jacobi was the patron of the Waltham Forest Drama Festival that I won the Adjudicator's Discretionary Award, I seem to remember. Twice in a row, 2 years in a row. And that just opened up these whole doors to my confidence because I was quite a shy lad. So I want to say, yes, I was the silly joker, but I really wasn't. I probably was at home with my brother and with my mum and dad, but that was as far as it went, really. So that opened that door to me to, almost gave me permission to say, oh, I can be silly with everyone. And so I did. I started... and then I went into training and did all that. Are we supposed to talk about this bit now?
Yeah, we can talk about this.
Right, well, 1977. No, I'm not going to go back that far. But yeah, so it did sort of give me permission, because and that little shy boy is still there. I'm still a little bit like that now. With my wife just laughed. I heard it then. No, but I am with social situations sometimes. One of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done is singing at my uncle's funeral. Weird. Or just speaking at a public event. I have to take on a different me. I've learnt to do that over the years because that's kind of what I have to do as a vehicle to get to being confident and being okay with an audience and not making a fool of myself. And I often do make a fool of myself, but I kind of forgive myself for doing it because I'm not me. I'm this other person that I've created, which is very helpful, actually. It's very helpful.
Who am I speaking to now, then? Am I speaking to...
No, well, we've been here for a couple of hours chatting anyway, so this is me.
This is you.
This is me. Oh, yeah, it is absolutely. In fact, it's more raw because I'm talking about stuff that I haven't talked about for a long time. That whole kind of aspect of me being the little shy boy, and
this is what you don't get on Zoom.
You don't get that on Zoom, love. No,
like the old days.
You have to be face to face. It's all right. We've been double jabbed. Double jabbed, love. Just take another little sip. Emergency medicine. There we are.
As an actor, then, When
years.
did you kind of become full-time, actually earning money from it?
Well, I was about to go to drama school. I went to a foundation. I did a foundation course in theatre studies and English literature at North Arts College in Hitchin, with the view to leaving there after 2 years and going off to drama school. And after the end of 2 years there was an option to stay for a third and just be as a practical student, meaning we'd done our A levels and we'd done all that bit, and now it was just doing productions. So I thought, oh, that sounds fun. I'll stay for a few shows, and we did, half a dozen shows over the year, that third year, and that was 1989. And I thought, great, okay, now what? So then I did audition for a couple of big drama schools, namely, I seem to remember Webber Douglas, and I went down there with a speech, and we were really trained well to have a classical and a modern, and know a bit of pitter patter about the plays that we were talking about. But I was 19, and I probably looked about 15. I looked very, very young in those days. It's all gone downhill since. But in those days, I was a baby-faced boy. And I went along, and I did all right, I think. And I remember the panel saying, look, we like what you did, but just go off and live a bit maybe first before you come back into this fold. And then we can probably mould you into some sort of actor. So I thought, okay, that's good advice. And then I got work. And really just because I had no choice. I did TIE stuff, and earned my card through doing a few tours, namely one that was called, what was it called? Mum, There's a Martian in the Shower. And I played Smith, who was the alien. I was the Martian. And my good mate of many, many years now, over 35 years, Glenn Davis, he was Jimmy Jeffries. And we toured that summer, and we got enough contracts to get our card together through a company called Desperate Measures. Will Brenton and Ollie, whose name escapes me now, both brilliant actors and producers and writers subsequently. And they were really generous in saying, look, take these contracts and go off and do this summer, because we're doing other stuff now. And so we had this card, we had this, the equity card was everything that we all work towards. You have to have your equity card to work. And then about 3 years after that, everything changed and there was no equity card needed for work. But I guess I was one of the last bastions. But then I was like, what do we do? What's next? So we did a couple more tours of little TIE stuff, and then I did rep. In fact, no, I didn't do rep. I went off and lived abroad. I lived in Greece and Sweden I was singing in various bands for the masses in hotels. Young people's sort of the Scandinavian equivalent of 1830 hotels. Called Vingressor, that was the company. But they did family holidays as well. But we were in a hotel called Hotel 33, and it was a real baptism of fire for me, because it suddenly introduced me to real life, and to women and men and everything, life in its, in all its entirety, and loved singing, great bands, really good vibe. Came back and realised I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to sing. It was great singing, and it was really good being musical and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to cling on to that, but I wanted to perform. I wanted to act. I wanted, my background was with serious theatre. I wanted to be an actor, and so I went off and auditioned for Peter Cheeseman up at Stoke-on-Trent. Newcastle under Lyme, actually, at the New Victoria Theatre, which is thankfully still triumphantly moving forward. It's weathered the storm, and it's amazing. It's in the round, and I did 2 seasons there with Akeborns and Shakespeare, and really earned my stripes. And I did musical theatre as well. Did sort of actor muso stuff, which again opened another door. I always think with this industry is that you can't decide what you want to do in it. It decides for you. You just go where the work goes, and that's ultimately it. Because if you want to earn money, you want to, you just want to move forward with your career, it will say, oh no, do this. And you'll go, no, I couldn't possibly do that. And they go, no, you have to do this. This is what's calling you right now. And I did some great actor muso shows there, which led me to go on to do other actor muso stuff, and loved it and really proud of it. And I went on to do Elvis the musical in the West End, and Only the Lonely, the story of Roy Orbison. I played his son Wesley, which was kind of the acting role within this rock and roll musical, essentially. Which was a bit bizarre because in the middle of this rock and roll musical about one of the greatest rock and roll stars ever, I had to do this huge speech about watching my brothers die, Roy Orbison's sons die in a fire, because Roy, Dwayne and Tony was his younger sons, and they perished in this basement fire in his home when Roy was away, and his older son Wesley was there and saw it all. It's tragic, awful. So in the middle of all these brilliant rock and roll songs, I have to walk on stage and do this heart-wrenching speech about watching my brothers die in the fire. It was pretty heavy stuff.
A bit like me at the start of this mentioning the cats.
Yes, exactly. We started well, and now we were getting on so well before then.
Yeah. Dead children.
It's all gone downhill.
Dead
No.
cats. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So I did the whole heavy drama bit within it, and again, I thought that's my calling. That's what I'm going to do. And then voice work came about. I did a few pantos. Then I was up at the Belgrade in Coventry, which was brilliant. And I was working at the time with Ian Lachlan and Will Brenton, who we'd just done a series on TV called Fun Song Factory, and I was a stand-in presenter for Dave Benson Phillips. You know Dave?
Yes.
He's brilliant. He's hilarious. He's fantastic. I love that guy. But he couldn't make all the rehearsals, so they needed someone to be there to do all his stuff. And then when he eventually did turn up, I'd sit down with him with a bit of paper and go, right, you go there, and then you sing that there, and then you do. And that was great. You know, really nice little job to get. But they were going on to to pitch a program to the BBC called Tweenies, and in the meantime we did Panto, and then they said, right, we're pitching this right now. Can you put a couple of voices on tape, what you think would be right for these characters? I said, yeah, okay, yeah, of course, you do anything. And I was at the time sharing digs with Justin Fletcher, who, Mr. Tumble, and so he was invited to do it as well. So we sat down together and we thought, okay, well, how are we going to do this? So we did it on an old C90, a little cassette player, probably from Tandy, where you used to work. A little realistic, press play and record, and off we went. And we pitched these voices, and next thing we know, we got commissioned. We got commissioned. Ian and Will got commissioned, and it ended up being 3 full series. It was we started off doing a year's contract, and it just took over my life. It was we had to learn puppeteering. We've never done anything like that before in my life. So we had one of the great animatronic guys, Neil Scanlon, who designed these animatronic head puppets that for location, so for scale, when we were outside in the real world, there were these puppets that we had to hold and puppeteer ourselves, but they were like gloves. It wasn't like a normal puppet. When you put your hand inside the head, there were wheels for each finger that you operated that did blinks and eyes and mouth and expressions that we had to learn. It was called a PAC system, a performance animatronic control, which then when you got to the studio, the skin actors, the sort of no taller than 5 foot, they're brilliant. They're all actors in their own rights as well. They had to put the heads on, and we had to operate the heads and do the voices. So that was, again, a whole new technical side of the industry to learn. And that was an even bigger system where you had to put both hands in and feet and pre-record all your lines. That was the first year. Then we realised that this was too time consuming, and it became the series that it became, Tweenies, based on the scale down. It ended up looking like a sort of mini PlayStation controller that we operated the mouth with and recorded it all. It was great. I played Milo and Max.
How did you come up with those voices?
It was quite a long process. We were working on it. It didn't air till 1999, and we were working on it early 98. We were doing loads of different workshops, to the point that we were thinking, God, are we actually going to be in this? Are we going to do this? Because possibly they're going to change everything. Often that happens in, especially in voice work, is that you do a whole episode of something which can take a long time to record, and then they go, no, that's not what we want at all, let's get a new lot of voices in and we'll do this. So you never really know if your job is secure or not. But so all this workshop process was happening, and so originally with Milo, I think I'd sort of put him at the back of my voice there. And they would say, no, they've got to sound younger. So I sort of went higher and went there and with my voice, right at the back of my throat, going, right, can you maintain that? I don't know. Let's try. So I spoke like that for a few minutes, and it hurt my throat a little bit. But then I found, as anyone does, you find that it's a muscle. So the more you use it in a certain style, the more it's okay, it's acceptable. So for the first few weeks, because they went, yeah, we love that, that's good, that's a good voice. So I thought, oh no, I've got to talk like this for a year. No, I had to talk like that for, nearly 4 years in the end, because with all the live shows and everything. So I sort of shot myself in the foot a bit, but amazingly, the voice adapts. And rather fortuitously, my other character that I played in Tweenies was Max, who was a completely different part of my voice. He was almost my normal speaking voice, based it on Graham Fellowes, John Shuttleworth, So they said, we want sort of a kindly northern generic voice. All right, so I'd push him sort of there, Oh, right, and where are we going? Oh, Jake, stop picking your nose with it. Oh, right, the Milo coming. And then, of course, they went, yeah, great, love that. And we were all working on our own voices and doing it. But then it came to the recording process where I was having conversations with Milo as Max and thinking, oh, God, how am I going to switch from that to that? It became a technical myriad, but we got there. And by the end of it, we were doing full conversations. Jake, Justin was playing Jake and Doodles, and they often had scenes together. And we perfected this kind of skill of Milo, where are you going now? I'm going in the garden. What do you mean you're going in the garden? So it's almost overlapping. It was so tight, but also with the talents of the wonderful Wally Waters, who was the sound engineer. He managed to sort of, in the early days, was editing a performance out of us, but by the end he was saying, do you know what, I didn't touch that. I went, what? What do you mean you didn't touch it? It was almost overlapping. He went, yes, you did that. And I was like, oh God. So with practice you can do amazing things, and so that's where I thought my career was going. I was a voice artist, that was it. So I got a voice agent, and that opened another door which said, this is what you're going to do now. So I did animations, a lot of animations around those years, early 2000s, for about 10-12 years. I was doing other stuff as well, but that was the bread and butter. That was the spine, and still is to a degree, of my career, as in playing as many characters as you can within one series. I often get cast for sort of multi-character work just because you kind of hone that skill of doing it. There's quite a lot of us out there now, thankfully, because then you get the diversity, and also as an audience you don't just get half dozen actors doing the same jobs all the time, but there's still the work, and there's more and more channels now, and so it is going. But I have to say personally, the animation stuff kind of peaked around 2010, 2011, and then other straight read stuff started coming in for me as a voice artist. So I do things like Oral B and the adverts, and GoPro with Oral B, and I'm now doing Disney Plus, all their kind of from Marvel Studios, Loki coming out now, streaming now on Disney Plus. That's the read that I get now. It's weird that the kind of evolution of it, again, it's not me deciding I want to do this, it just takes you there, and I'm happy to be led, honestly. But in the middle of all that was my passion, and that's theatre. And obviously the Morecambe journey was a huge one.
How did you look after the voice then? And also, how did you remember which voice was for which character?
Oh, well, you've got wonderful people that you work with that just give you references all the time. So often, there was, at my peak, I was probably doing 4 or 5 different animations at any one time, and then you go, okay, what's this character again? And some of them are small characters, so you do 8 or 9 characters and you can't remember what that robot sounded like, and then they play you a little bit of reference back, and that's where the industry looks after the artists, and the artists hopefully look after the industry, and that it's part of the wheel that turns, isn't it? So we get made to look much better than we are by the engineers and the producers and the voice directors, just because they remember stuff. They can guide you, and they're there. So yeah, that's the easy bit really. But again, it's when you ask about the voice, I mean, you don't really have to do much else other than keep doing it. If you stop doing it, that's when it's quite harmful. Like doing panto, for example, we gird our loins when we get to November and we think, right, I mean, I tell my voice agent, don't get me anything until, end of January, really, because it strips your vocal cords. Even though we've all mic'd up now, we've got the added technical bonuses now, but it's still, if you walk in a room and you're performing at that level, you can't vocally hold back. You've got to fill the room, and the bigger the room, the bigger you speak, and that's just the way it is. It's a natural thing, I guess. I'm sure you've heard that many times from other performers. You just got to you've got to work the room, love. You've got to work it. You have to, vocally you do as well. And thankfully, coming from doing sort of 8 shows a week in the West End, that's what really, if you can't do it, you're out very early. There are performers, well-known performers as well, that have gone into the West End, done shows, and they can't do it. They can't hack it. The voice won't hack it. They get colds. They can't. But you have to. You build up a resilience. I think part of it is luck, and the other is discipline. If you're out, hitting the town every night, alcohol's going to dry your vocal cords out. Perhaps have a bit more water, Hayden, and you'll be all right. You've done lots of work on radio, so you must know, how do you look after your voice? Do you actually look after it, or do you just go, oh, it doesn't work, I'm not going to talk now? What?
Yeah, pretty much that.
Oh.
And it was the old vocal exercises. And
do you?
Well, I did.
Ooh.
When the radio, you're just opening up the vocal cords, so you sound a bit more butch.
Yes. Isn't it nice? No, a good warm-up is important, I think. And with voiceover stuff, you don't really do that. That's kind of weird. It's a really good point, though. I think with Tweenies it was different because it was 6 days a week for the best part of 3 years of my life. So it was full on. So even without a warm-up, your voice knows where to go. So, and even now, this is nearly 20 years after we finished. In fact, it's over 20 years. We finished in 2000... Oh, no, it's almost... 2002 was our last series. But I can talk like that for quite a long time now if I need to. It's a bit disturbing, really.
It's very disturbing considering I used to watch it with my eldest son.
Yeah, that's right. No, I do get now, and the age range is like people in their 20s coming out and go, go on, do it. In fact, one of the neighbours of we live on a boat, and as you know, one of next door's kids, they're 21. She said, "Were you Marlon?" The 20 said, Yeah. She's like, oh my God, do the voice. Awestruck. I didn't realise what an impact we made to those kids. The kids shows, you don't realise how long they stay with you. And if you think about it, if Richard, every time I hear Richard Bryer's voice, it just takes me back to rhubarb and custard. And you don't, but as you're doing it, when you're doing that job, you don't think, oh, this is going to make a lasting impression on someone. You really don't. You're just doing a job. And so it's actually lovely when someone says, you were my childhood. I get that a lot. I recently did a thing on TikTok. My daughter put on that I was the voice of Milo, and she suddenly got bombarded with all these people going, oh my God, get him to do the voice, blah, 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 blah. And she got so freaked out that she turned it off. She didn't want to entertain it. So I thought, oh, I'm intrigued. Perhaps I should put something on there. So I did, and it's got nearly 1 million hits. All of a sudden, all these people are going, you were my child, you absolutely were. Do this voice, do that voice. Do you know any of the others? Can you? So I started getting other guests on, and so I've got this like Tweenie talk thing. It's weird. But the power of television, we were talking about it earlier with Derek and Clive. The power of television, honestly.
Any listeners who don't know who Derek and Clive is, don't Google it.
YouTube it, don't Google it. Yeah, no, it's an important thing to appreciate, is that the more you use your voice, the more used to it it's going to be. But as soon as you stop, then you've got a long way to go. Like, I used to sing all the time. I had a band. I had a 13-piece soul band called the Guild of Thieves. Loved gigging. We gigged every weekend for 5 years. And I stopped, started having kids, and the weekends became sacred. So I stopped the band, stopped gigging. It's still there on the back burner, and I want to do it again. And then I did do musical theatre, and I have sung in gigs, and but it's not there now. My singing voice isn't there, so I've got to start doing it again if I want to, use it in my career, because different facets of your voice is, if you don't use one little facet, it will be gone. It'll be gone. You've got to keep using them all, not just talking. But, especially with voice work, because some of the characters that are doing that out there, some of them are down here, and then there's the middle stuff there, and you've got to have the rich tones with all of them. And the minute you don't is the minute that it starts slowing down and you don't get the phone calls, and it won't work for you anymore. So it's yeah. I mean, we'll die with our boots on. I don't want to retire. I want to keep going. A lot of actors my age and my generation will keep doing that. John Gielgud, for example, is not that he's in my generation, but he was working when he was in his 90s, wasn't he? Right to the very end. We shouldn't. Keep giving whatever you can give. This is not an appeal for charity. Thank you.
What happens then when you're poorly?
We're all poorly. We've got certain remedies. I remember when I was doing Morecambe, the very last night of the West End run at the Duchess, I could hardly talk. I had laryngitis, pharyngitis, and tonsillitis at the same time, just from overuse. And it was Christmas. I was doing 9 shows a week with that show specifically on the run up to Christmas, plus all the rehearsals and the note sessions. And that's what really kills it, is because you're just using your voice the whole time, and that's what's susceptible. At least it is for me. So I, doctor came along, gave me a jab or something. Don't know what it was. Did help, got me through it. But you lose the top end. But you've got to carry on. You have to carry on. I've never, in my career, touch wood. I'm just trying to think. No, never missed a show. Not professionally. When I was at college, I did Accidental Death of an Anarchist by Dario Fo. And I was playing the constable, which is a great slapstick role. And unfortunately, I got glandular fever, so I couldn't do the run. But the director stepped in and did it. But on a professional level, after training, I never missed a show. And you just get, everyone talks about doctor theatre. You just, get on and do what you've got to do to the best that you can do it. But we're all our worst critics, so I hate doing it ill. I don't, because when you come off, you're like, that was 40%. You feel 40%, whereas really, not many people will notice it. They'll go, no, it's great, it pulled you through. But actually, and as a performer, you do. You're harsh. You're harsh on yourself. And
I was going to say, are you your own worst critic?
God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for years I didn't read reviews, and then started doing good stuff, and then everyone's saying you should read that review. So I did, and now I do, and actually I take it with a pinch of salt, really, because you are your only judge, really. If you do a show that you think is awful and everyone's going, that's brilliant, I'll still go to bed that night thinking, yeah, but that you do. You're harsh on yourself, I think. But that's quite right, because you've got to keep the bar somewhere. Yeah, I think I am quite harsh on myself, but that's okay. I think that will ease with time. And the older you get, the less you care, really. The less you care what other people think, that's essentially it, isn't it?
Well, you mentioned him a couple of times already, Eric Morecambe.
Yeah.
And looking at you now, you've got the specs.
The lack of hair.
I wasn't going to say that, but he's obviously been a big part of your life. Do you remember when you first experienced or was exposed to Eric Morecambe?
No.
For want of a better phrase.
Yes. No. Well, I mean, the whole journey began. I was doing a show. I was doing a play called Wasp, which was written by Steve Martin, the American comedian, and that was in Edinburgh. And I was working with a guy called Guy Masterson, who was known at the time, still is, for doing one-man shows in Edinburgh. And during that process, I said to him, do you know, I'd love to do a one-man show at some point in my career. And he said, oh, well, let's talk about it at some point. I was 27 at the time. And then we didn't talk about it for years. We stayed friends and we didn't really talk about it. And then oh gosh, I'm just trying to think how long. Probably 10 years later that we said. He said, "Oh, do you want to do that one-man show?" I said, "Yeah, I've got this great idea. I want to do a one-man show about the fictional character Le Pantomime, the famous farter. You know, the one that Lena Roster did that wonderful short film about him." And I thought, that's great. And I read the book a couple of times. I just thought, I love this. And farts are the funniest things in the world. You know, they're low-hanging fruit, as my producer Paul Hendy would say. They are, but they're still funny. And I thought, if you do a play about that, that'd be wonderful. So I talked to Guy about it. He said, "Yeah, you go off and write it, and I'll direct it." I said, "Okay." And I went off for a bit, and I thought, I don't know. I talked to my mate Tim Whitnall. He said, "Oh, that's hilarious. That'd be really good." And at the time, my then wife and Guy said, "You know, you do look like Eric Morecambe. You know that, don't you?" And I was like, yeah, whatever. I've had that all my life. It's because I wear glasses. No, you've just got this air about you. Okay. And I said, well, maybe let's do one about Eric Morecambe. I didn't really think about the consequences at the time, and just thought, yeah, okay, let's do that. And Tim Whitnall, wonderful Tim. I mean, he has got the Midas touch on everything he does. You know, he's got BAFTA, he's got Olivier's, he's got... he was Elvis in the West End. He played Elvis at the musical, and Middle Elvis in the 70s. Oh, he played young Elvis in those days. Really talented man. Now a writer. And he said, "I will write this play about Eric Morecambe, and you'll be brilliant, Bob." And I said, no, I mean, I'm not really sure. No, leave it to me. And he disappeared, and we had this meeting about doing this. This is about 1998. Was it 98? No, 2008. God, the years. 2008. And he disappeared for 6 weeks, came back with 10 pages and went, "Right, read this." So, and I thought, I'd never really given it a thought. I went off and I looked at all the DVDs and, okay. And then Guy said, "Right, okay, let's have another meeting about making this a real thing." So we got together in the room with another producer, with Guy, and thought, okay, we can do it. We did a little tester, no audience, in a little theatre in Bedford called The Place. They just literally gave us the room, and we put some lights up, and I stood there and went, "Oh yeah," you know, I was trying my best to do an Eric impression, and they were like, "Yeah, there's something there. We can work with this." So Tim went away to write it. I locked myself in a room for months. I mean, literally months. My kids didn't see me, and I was just watching every single DVD there was of the boys, and trying to hone, because that's the thing. It's one thing doing a play about one of your comic heroes. The other thing is to try and get the nuances and the technical side of performing that person. It was a huge mountain. I didn't really enjoy the process, actually, because it was no on every level. It was no, you can't do that. No, that's not right. Physical stuff, the way he held himself, and his voice. You know, it took me a little while to get the fact that where he puts his teeth, you know, when he speaks, he's had this certain place. I'm exaggerating now, but you know, he has it there, and also he was denying the fact that he was from is a Lancastrian lad, you know, because the BBC drummed that out, and so some of the vowels that he said, he didn't say Bath, he said Bath. He said, "But it's a longer A," you know, little tiny things like that. And you know, where he placed the top set of his teeth, oh yes, you know, when he spoke. So we had to come up with this phrase that would get me in the mindset of Eric. You know, what name a phrase that Eric says. And I listened to a lot of the radio stuff that the boys did. And often he would say, "I'll smash your face in. Oh, I'll smash your face in. Oh, well, I'll smash your face in." And that became the phrase that sort of opened that door into Eric. And during the rehearsal process, we were all saying it. "I'll smash your face in. No, I'll smash your face in. Hey, I'll smash your face in." And it just became a language in its own. Just, I'll smash your face. I'll smash your face. And we became obsessed with it. And then that really helped me, because you apply that to every little thing that he says and then strip it away. Take all of the impression away and then just concentrate on the text. You look at the book, and Tim is honestly, he's a genius writer, wonderful writer, and he wrote with such affection and such a beautiful language, almost poetic in the way that it was phrased. It almost had a meter to it. It was such a gift, and I did take a lot of praise for that show, and I often sort of forget how how much of that is attributed to the writing. And that does happen a lot in the world of entertainment, is that it's all about the delivery, and people say, oh wow, you're really funny, but behind every great comic or great comedian or actor, there's someone who's just slaved over this script, and that's what I can't really take all that credit. It's most of it's got to go to Tim, because the flowery wording of things, and also capturing what to say. And Anton Deck came to see the show in Edinburgh, and I remember afterwards Declan said, you know, what's canny is what you haven't put in it. And that's true. You know, we could have done all the Australian tours and loads about the Ed Sullivan Show, but it was Tim's absolute brilliant intellect that said, okay, no, let's give the audience what they want there. The whole first act, I don't know if you saw the play, was all about the stuff we didn't know about Eric, all his youth and coming up through, you know, Jack Hilton nurturing him and his mother nurturing him and Ernie, and then developing the double act, and you know, being a bit jealous of each other at first, and then striking it and deciding who was going to be the funny one, who was going to be the straight one. That's a beautiful discovery, and we don't really know that journey. So that I earned my stripes in the first act, because that was all telling the audience that bit, and then the second act was a dream, because that was just playing all the right notes in the right order, you know. It was so, Tim Guest gave us this lovely script that just really nodded. We couldn't use the actual sketches themselves because of copyright, you know. You can't breach copyright with that kind of stuff, and why would you want to? You can't copy it. You shouldn't. One shouldn't just do exactly word for word what they did, I don't think. Although there are brilliant acts out there that do that and do it brilliantly. But with this piece of theatre, we didn't want to sort of go that far with it, you know. We just wanted to sort of allude to it. So little things like when Eric had his first heart attack, we used the stripper music with the breakfast scene when he was taking his pills. So with every ba-da, 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 ba, I'll be throwing up a pill and catching it. Ba-da, 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 ba-da. You know, and opening up the fridge and just to get something, the light coming on and dancing. Just little nods. And that was the nuances of the genius of Tim Whitnall that made me look better than I am, really. And also, at the end of those performances, the affection for Eric and Ernie out there is still, or was, and I'm sure it still is, huge. And if anyone talks about the boys, their hand comes up to their heart. There's this kind of secret love, not secret, very public, but also personal to you, because it was everyone's uncle. You know, Eric was everyone's funny uncle, and just opened all those memories of what used to be. You know, it's very innocent, and I realised at the end of the shows we got a lot of standing ovations, and at first you think, oh, thank you, dear, you know, thank you, darling, thank you for my sweat and toil. No. 80% of what that standing ovation was the love and affection for Morecambe and Wise, and thankfully the audiences were there. You know, we're all getting older now, so if we were to bring it back again, I don't know if the same audiences would be there now, because we're all carking it, love. But the love and affection for that comedy is there, and they were inspired by all the greats before, Lauren Hardy and Will Hay, and you know, it's a rich comedy bed of inspiration that's there that shouldn't be forgotten. So that was one of the things that made me so proud to do it. It wasn't, I mean, very much on the coattails of someone else's success, but also we need to keep that going. We need to kind of say, weren't these people brilliant? And as an actor, if you can do that, that's job done. You know, that's a box ticked. And I've done stuff subsequently, you know, about Bob Monkhouse. There's a few others in the pipeline that I'm not sure if I can talk about yet, but 2022 is looking like a really exciting year to be in Edinburgh. And I'm looking like I'm going to be directing a couple of big projects that are hailing some comedy heroes from the past.
Ooh,
which
exclusive.
Is yes, very exciting. But that's why we do them, and I think it's not about us. You know, it's about them. It's about hailing the genius that was, because that's where we get our inspiration from. And it's all, there's only so many notes on a keyboard, and if you go right back to the original piece of music, metaphorically, then we are inspired again. You know, other people can be inspired by that to go on and do even better and more, you know, appropriate comedy for this era. I don't, you know, if Morecambe and Wise were around now and in their heyday, maybe they wouldn't be as brilliant as they were. It's all about timing. Eric said that. You know, someone once asked him, is comedy all about timing? And he said all of life is based on timing. And that it was the most profound thing he ever said, I think, because if they'd been around before or after that, they wouldn't have had the success that they did, and we wouldn't have been blessed with that every Christmas, you know, around the telly. And that's we haven't even talked about Panto yet, but that's the kind of secret of Panto, is that you please everyone. You know, there is a level of comedy that can reach, you know, the oldest grandparent and the youngest child. Isn't that wonderful? That's great. And if that goes, what have we got left? You know, we've got to keep it going.
Especially at the moment, after everything we've been through.
Yeah, but there's always an especially, isn't there? Because life isn't easy, and we always need something to laugh at. We always need... This pandemic is just another reason to go, let's carry on doing it. What's been frustrating is that we haven't physically been able to be in a building together, because the magic of theatre is not what's going on stage, it's what the audience bring. And because otherwise we'd all just be doing shows in our front rooms, wouldn't we? And to each other, whereas, you know, as into our own families. But in a theatre, something happens. There is, and I don't ever want to sort of dissect it and work out what it is, because as soon as you do, it's like a joke. If you start saying what it's funny because, it doesn't become funny anymore. So, but there is an energy in a room. We all know this, you know, of in a theatre, whether it be comedy or musical or straight theatre, that just brings something, and it's specific to that one performance, that one night or day that you see the show. And you know, long may that come back and last for a long time. It will never stop. I think we will overcome, as Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. That was a party political broadcast of the Twatty Party.
Before we started recording, you said that you were friends with the Morecambe family. Did they go and see the play?
Yes, they've all seen it. The first member of the family to see it was Gail, who bizarrely came to Wellingborough. And I didn't know she was coming. Gail, Joan and Eric's daughter. We had contact with the estate and with the family and said we're going to do this play. I didn't really have much to do with that. They kind of protected me away from all that. They just said, you focus on the script, and the producers kind of did their thing. But I really, really wanted, and made it very clear that I wanted the family to approve of what we were doing, because you know, essentially Tim had written a love letter to Eric Morecambe in a theatrical format, and that's what we wanted to convey. But obviously every estate is very protective about what goes on out there, and there's certain things you can and cannot say, and they dealt with all that. And so I sort of stayed away from it until I was on tour. And Gail tapped me on the shoulder at Wellingborough, and I turned round and she said, "You're Bob." And I said, "You're Gail." She said, "Yeah, I've seen the show tonight." And I said, "Oh," I didn't really know what to say. I said, "I'm speechless. This is wonderful." And then I suddenly went quiet, and I said, Did you enjoy it?" She said, "Well, I was warned to bring some handkerchiefs because they said it was quite emotional." And she produced this massive wad of tissues from her bag, and she said, "I've used every one." And it really made me well up, and I gave her a big hug, and we became really good friends. And for the latter part of that tour that I did, she would often turn up. I remember in Manchester, her and Jonathan would turn up and just say, "Come on, let's go for a pint afterwards." And we'd sit there and we'd talk till about 3 a.m. I'd go, "Oh my God, I've got another show tomorrow. I've got to go to bed." And it was just a real blessing. And then when I got to Cheltenham on the second tour, at the Everyman, Gary showed up. And he showed up before the show, actually, and said, "Do you want to go for a bite to eat?" And we went, and it was like I'd known him for 20 years. And I think it was for him as well. We could not stop talking. and really excited about the fact that we were going on this little theatrical journey together at that point. And to get his approval was everything to me, really. Because I didn't want him to come and say, well, it's a shame that this happened. And so, but he did. I mean, yeah, there was a couple of things that he wanted to tweak in the play, but which is understandable because, you know, if you condense someone's life into an hour and 45 minutes on stage, there are obviously things that you don't want to be said, or you want more to be said of that. And it's only tiny little things, but and it's valid as well. And so we tweaked little things here and there, and since then we've been really, really good mates. But there was one particular day I remember when, because at the time I lived in St Albans, and Gary phoned and said, "Oh, I'm at Mum's. Do you want to come up for a cup of tea?" And I said, "Oh yeah, of course." And it didn't hit me. And I was like, "I'm going to Eric Morecambe's house here," and they lived in Harpenden, you know, and so it was only up the road. So I drove into the drive and got out the car nervously, and Gary was there to meet me and took me back to the back. It's a theatre, darling. Took me back to the back garden, and there was Joan, who gave me just a lovely welcome and said, "Would you like a cup of tea?" So there I am, sitting in Eric's garden with Eric's son and Eric's wife getting me a cup of tea, who brought a biscuit as well. And we just sat there chatting, and it was just one of those moments, you know, the kind of, who would have even imagined this happening? Not only, you know, talking about someone that you love, but talking about them with their family, and it's you kind of a little step closer, aren't you, really? So that was special. And then since then we've stayed really good mates, and we hang out when we can. And Gary's moved around the country so many times in the last few years, and now I believe he's moving to Leeds, so he's going back up north again. But really, really good mate, and the family. They're just, what's lovely about the Morecambe family, the Bartholomew family, is that they're a normal family. They've got kids and grandkids and great grandchildren, and you know, and Joan is this incredible figurehead who's still going in her 90s and just as beautiful and eloquent and classy as she ever was. And I think she'll go on for much, much longer as well. She's just and just so warm and a professional. You know, there are people that you meet that maybe just lament the good old days that they've gone. They've gone into the past. But with Joan, she's just in the moment. She's right there. She's, you know, really on it, and she does loads of charity work. She's an OBE now, I think, or an MBA. She's been acknowledged, you know, in that respect. She's a real trooper and an amazing person, as are the family. And what I warmed to was just their normalness. There's no kind of starriness about them at all. I mean, yes, Joan lives in a massive house with a big pool, and it was, you know, it's in Harpenden, one of the most expensive places in the country. But that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. There's no nod to that at all. They're really humble, really normal, lovely family. And, you know, Gary has written several books about Eric and the boys brilliantly. They're all still out there. We learnt so much from them doing the play, you know, on that journey. There's no end of referencing. Lovely story. I mean, the play took an evolution as well with things like the gags that we put in and how we ended it and how we, you know, the peaks and the troughs within it. I remember one show we did somewhere. Well, I can't remember where it was, but we just read that Michael Aspel had quoted this lovely story about the commissionaire at the BBC Television Centre. You know about them?
No, I don't.
So there's the famous commissionaire at the BBC Television Centre. He had one arm.
Oh, one arm, yes.
Yeah. And he would be always holding the door open for all the big stars. And he said to Eric one day, he said, "Could I have a couple of tickets for the show at the weekend, please?" And Eric looked him in the eyes and he said, "No." He said, "Sorry?" He said, "No, you can't." He said, "Oh, why?" "Because you can't clap." Which is gorgeous, isn't it? But you know that come Saturday, he was front row with the missus.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, of course he would have done. It was gorgeous. And little stories like when Des O'Connor, you know, that lovely story that they tell of remember there's a moment in the play when Tim's written about Eric saying, I've got to get this right, hang on. When I had my heart attack, Des asked his entire... Hang on a minute. When I had my heart attack, Des asked the entire audience of his show to say a prayer for me. I told him later, those 6 or 7 people made all the difference. I'll get there in the end.
And looking at you, just facially, you become him.
You know, it takes a while, which is great for a podcast because they can't see a thing. Hey, look at this expression. You can't tell the join. You can't see the join.
Oh, yeah, that's happening as well to me.
Yeah, it's happened to me last year, actually. I decided to... just pouring a glass of wine there, folks, don't worry. I decided to shave it all off because it was going so thin. And then and my wife said, no, the curls! But they soon fell to the floor. And then I saw how little I had left. And then today, my son, who's 11, Ernie... and no, he's not called Ernie because of the show. My granddad was Ernest, but actually he was born in 2009 when we did start the play. But so it was quite good timing again, as Eric said. He said to me, "Oh, Dad, you're going grey at the sides." So there we go. Age, it's catching up on us all. Can't avoid it.
Kids are horrible, really, aren't they?
Yeah, hate them.
Yeah.
That's why I've only had 4.
Pantomime, then.
Oh yes.
You said you dabbled in it a little bit in your early years.
Yeah, and I thought that was it. I thought that's it. I've ticked that box.
What was it you were doing? And
I did. What was the show? It was Sleeping Beauty at the Belgrade in Coventry. It was a big production, and it was nearly 3 hours long. So it was really long, I thought, for a show. I think the optimum time for any pantomime is like 55 to an hour for the first half and 40 to 45 minutes for the second half. That's it, because you've got the interval as well. 2 hours of an evening or afternoon, bang, that's it. The kids will sit down for an hour maximum, and if it goes over the hour, I always think, come on, keep the pace going. But this was longer than that, and not through anyone's fault. It was just there was loads of material and everyone had a little bit of shtick and a little bit of an act to do, and we had to get through it. So I looked back on that and thought, okay, I'm done with Panto now. I'm going to do other stuff if I'm lucky enough to get it, and I got other work.
Who were you playing?
Oh, I was playing the comedy henchman. I was with an actor called Jim Lowe and Justin Fletcher. Actually, Justin was Josh the jester. It was fantastic, he was a great Justin. We were really, really good mates all through those years and into Tweenies and everything. But then his career just went off, and we don't see him really because he's so busy. Quite rightly, he's off doing his live stuff, and when he's not doing the live stuff, he's writing the next TV show, and he's a busy boy. But Jim Lowe and I, who's a Scottish actor, we played the duck and dive, these comedy sidekicks, the bad henchmen, sort of comedy idiots. And he was asked to play. He's Scottish, right? Quite, I think he's from Aberdeen, but was asked to play it like Russ Abbott plays a Scotsman. So if you ask a Scotsman to kind of parody a Scotsman, it's going to start making sense, So when he used to go, that was what they wanted, as in that's the comedy stick behind it. But he was like trying to make sense of the lines and going, well, I'm away down here and I don't know what I'm doing. And so it kind of missed it a little bit. But it was great. It still worked. But it was a long old show, and we worked so hard. We were doing 3 shows a day. And it was, brilliant, lovely team, really no weak links. It all worked, but I just kind of felt that I'd done that then, and I wanted to move on. It wasn't one of those contracts that I just thought, yeah, I want to go back and do it again the next year. I wanted to go off and do other stuff, and thankfully got other stuff, but it was always there, sort of looming. And then Tweenies happened, actually, and then then Morecambe happened. And it was then Paul Hendy came to see Morecambe in Margate, because he's a Kent boy, and he contacted my agent and said, would Bob meet me at the Auburn Arena Cafe? There used to be a cafe there at the time, and so I did. And he said, would you consider doing Panto? And I said, well, where? And he said, well, here. And obviously I lived in St Albans. He said, I saw Morecambe. I want you to just be Morecambe, doing a character in the Panto, and I said, I'll give it a thought. And at the time, I was earning really good money doing voiceovers, and it was kind of a big hit to take off, 6 to 8 weeks out of my schedule to financially, it was going to be quite a hard thing to do. And it was, and I did that year, and I remember at the end of that first Panto, which I loved, absolutely loved doing, and I played Herman the Henchman in Snow White, and with Toya Wilcox, who's just an absolute enigma, and the lovely Gemma Carlisle, who's still doing Evolution Pantos now, and she never gets the credit that she deserves. She's awesome. Anyway, so I was doing that, and I came away. I thought, I don't want to leave this family, but I can't afford to go back again. So I said to Paul, look, mate, I really want to come back, but I can't afford to do it. And he went, oh. I think it was a bit of a weird. I think he thought I was trying to play him for more money, but actually I was working really well in adverts and stuff. It's a lucrative world, and also I lived in St Albans, and I had a 5-bedroom house, and there was a huge mortgage, and it was a real struggle to kind of make ends meet. And then he came back and he said, look, come back next year and I'll pay you this much money, and let's try and make it work. And so I did, and thankfully I did, because that changed my life. And it reopened I suddenly was back watching Bill Owen, that passion that awakens all those feelings. You go, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing it. And the teams, I've never had a bad team that I've worked with for Evolution in St Albans. I love St Albans. I love the theatre, the staff, everyone that I was sort of anticipating this interview, this chat, where you were going to ask me, what is Panto? And in my mind, I've got an answer. And Panto is family. And I don't mean family, don't just mean family as in it's a family show. I mean family as in you become part of a family. Temporarily we become part of a family on stage. Temporarily you become part of a family as an audience. Even if you come on your own to a pantomime, you are part of the Panto family from that moment that the curtain comes up till when you leave the theatre, because there are kids around you, there are older people laughing, there are younger people laughing, there are laughing perhaps where they shouldn't laugh, or when they are told to laugh. It doesn't matter. And then the whole slapstick stuff, we all laugh at that. It's universal. It brings us together. We all become a family in such a huge metaphor. And it took a little while for that to sort of hit me. It was sort of the second Panto that I did for Evolution that suddenly awakened that, and I went, I love this, and I can't imagine a Christmas not doing Panto, although I can, because last Christmas we didn't do one, which was kind of nice in a way, but we all missed it. In fact, we were Zooming more than I've ever Zoomed in my life around that time. We just did so many connections at last Christmas going, we're not working together. How can we moan about stuff? How can we, how can we be knackered? We can justify being knackered. It was a weird little void, which I'm sure will just become a blot on the landscape and we'll forget. But no, I can't imagine life going forward without that family and the feeling of family, because not only your family comes to see the show, you kind of up your game, someone else's family comes, and then the little hellos at the end. It's just like a wedding, isn't it? It's like a wedding, and during that there are kids sliding on their knees down the aisle, and being told to go back and sit down again. It does that. It has this weird effect on us, and it doesn't matter where you come from, what background, how fortunate or unfortunate you are, you will connect with it at some point. You will. There's a snobbery within the industry with it. It's very prevalent there, but I think it's becoming less prevalent now because, thankfully, the likes of brilliant known actors are doing pantomime, because it's in such an immediate, wonderful high. It's incredible, not just for the actors, for the crew, it's knackering. Of course, it's knackering. We're shattered. But it brings us all together as this little metaphorical wanky family.
Do you get the Panto blues afterwards?
I don't now. I used to. I've just sort of trained my mind to not worry about it, because I've got a big family and I've got 4 kids. So I just keep busy, and actually it takes me 3 weeks to kind of go, okay, that's done now. it's a lovely thing to look forward to, and you kind of brace, and you take all the remedies and you have the flu jabs and all this kind of stuff, and then you get through it, and it's a real triumph, and then you know the audiences are great, and you're just on a high. What used to happen with me is that you have a crash, that you kind of had that sort of adrenaline crash afterwards. But now, in later years, I have to say that I'm very used to that feeling and actually quite enjoy it now. So on the last day, yes, it's sad to say goodbye to those lovely people and the wonderful, talented, you know, the dancers don't get enough credit. They are so hard working. Dancers, the musicians, they don't get enough credit. They do just as the same amount of shows as we all do. And they're just like, oh, and the band. And here we go. First one's out. There you go. The dancers, they're about, get off. Now, here come the stars. And actually, the bigger the part in the show, the less they do in it, really. So it's the dancers and the musicians that are, you know, they're absolutely working their mustard all the way through that season, and they don't get enough credit. But so, no, I don't. I've sort of tuned myself into kind of, when it finishes, I go, give us a hug, come here now, right, what's next? I'll tell you what's next, a little holiday with the kids. And we go off, and that's the come down, and you know there's still adrenaline for that, because you look forward to that, and then a slow little rest period around February, and then hopefully the year starts around March, April time. I've been very lucky that has been the way that's happened to me over the last 15, 20 years. Might change. I'm ready for that. It's okay. Maybe not financially prepared for it, but I'm ready. It's okay. It's always there. I think any performer will tell you, you're only as good as your last job. Crack on. Hope there's another one coming around the corner.
Whose idea was it then for you to wear the frock?
Reluctantly, I mean, I really didn't want to play Dame. Paul, I think I did 3 or 4 as the comedy sidekick. You know, the idiot son or whatever. And Paul said, look, would you be up for playing Dame? Because I want you to stay here in St Albans, but I can't justify you being here as a small role. I have to put you in as a pivotal role. And obviously the Dame in every pantomime is the kind of pivot. Everything works around that. She's not the star, but she is the pivot. She's what everyone sort of latches onto, and is the revolve that we can all appreciate. And it did take a bit of convincing for me. And I said, I don't know if I can do a Dame. I don't know. He said, Bob, you don't need to do anything different from what you've been doing. And I didn't understand that at first. And I talked to the wonderful Damien Williams and Ben Roddy, just phenomenal dames. They are, for lack of a better phrase, a cock in a frock. You know, they are proper dames, big bother boots, you know, very obviously a geezer. And they said, look, no, we don't really change anything. And, you know, from a comedy, you know, from playing Smee to playing Dame Smee, there is literally no difference. You're just wearing a frock. And it's not that I was scared of wearing a frock. I mean, I'm probably scared of having, you know, 15 costume changes in a show, because that's a bit of a schlep. But so that wasn't really the thing. But for me, it was, I don't know if I can do the Dame. And thankfully, Paul had faith in me and said, look, let's do this. And I love it now. I absolutely love it. I don't really do much I'm probably one of the rare dames that don't do much makeup. I just put a bit of red on my finger and then touch my lips, and that's it. And I've got my big round glasses, and that's enough. It's a bit sort of Arthur Askey-esque in that sense. And I don't wear boobs unless the costume has already got the boobs written in as a visual gag, like we did the bathroom scene last Panto. And it came with these huge knockers, and they worked brilliant. They got a big laugh on the entrance, and that's the important thing there. But generally, I'm not a sort of booby dame. I'm a flat-chested dame like Arthur. Not for any other reason other than I'm kind of proving that point that we're just a geezer in a dress. I think when you start. I'm not saying that dames that are played femininely aren't brilliant. They're still really, really funny, and it's great. But I think this style of dame works so well. It's just that you know, it's Uncle Bob in a frock, you know, in a big pair of boots. It's so inappropriate and wrong, and yet so wrong. In fact, it's really hard to describe, isn't it? I used to live in Sweden, and I tried to describe and explain the premise of what pantomime is to Swedes. And then, bless them, they try to understand it. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So there's a bloke in a dress. Yeah, okay, right. That's funny, right? Yeah, but it's not just funny. There's also, there's pathos there. You feel sorry for him. Really? Why do you feel sorry for him? Well, because it's a woman. She's her son has given away their cow, and it's heartbreaking, and she doesn't know what she's going to do. She's just going to feed the family. But that's serious drama. Yes, it is serious drama. And that's why it works, because you go, oh, how is this going to work? And then whoop, there's something happens that makes it hilarious, and it all turns around. And they were like, oh. I still don't think they understand. I've just said, look, come and see it. And I've persuaded 2 of them to come last year, and of course, didn't do the bloody thing. So there we go. Yeah. So Paul talked me into being Dame, and I haven't looked back, and I love it. And in fact, this year, for the first time, I've commissioned 2 frocks to be made with my stamp on it, as in I'm the first one to wear them, and then they'll go and do the distance through the Evolution Dames.
You're not a hoarder then, like so many dames are.
No, I just step into the boots and get on with it. I haven't got, well, for a start, I haven't got the room. I live on a boat.
but it wouldn't stop some dames.
No, true.
When you go round.
Quinn Patrick, he used to live on a boat. In fact, I think he still does, doesn't he? I think it's possible, yeah. He's brilliant. He's fantastic. Yeah. So no, I don't hoard anything like that. I sometimes I dispute what I wear, just because it's not my kind of dame. I've developed my kind of costume dame that I like, and it doesn't impede, because I'm quite like using my legs and quite sort of physical comedy, and I find that sort of really gratuitous costumes, which yes are hilarious and brilliant, they kind of impede me physically, and big headdresses. That some of the headdresses that I've worn, you can't do anything but focus on keeping it on your head, and so the comedy of it comes out of I can't move very fast, and that is funny. But I don't like that. Don't like that kind of impeachment. I like to be sort of free and move around, and that's if I don't do that, then I don't enjoy the scene as much. So yeah, so these costumes I've designed are very light headwear, big headwear. You can be lots going on up there, but very light, very light. The foam, the sekasui. Oh yes, I didn't swear. It's a real word, sekasui.
And what do the kids make?
I went to school with her.
What do the kids make of it then? Seeing Dad.
Yeah, at first, so I've got 2 teenage daughters and a son who's nearly teenage, but not quite yet. I think at first it was a source of great embarrassment for them, but now they secretly love it, and they get a lot of attention at school, because obviously I was in St Albans where they're at school, and they get a lot of people saying, "That's your dad in the panto. Oh, I love the panto." There's a lot of affection for it, and I have to say, with Evolution and Paul and Emily, their quality is very high. Their bar is very high, and it's not that they're strict or they don't sort of hold us with a rod of iron or anything like that. They're very free with letting us perform how we want to perform, but there is a certain brand within the Evolution feel of a pantomime, and for me that's pace. It's British light entertainment, old BBC days, or even ITV, Thames Television, all that kind of universal broad comedy that works, and a little bit of a nod to some cheeky jokes. But we don't focus on that, and I think that works so well, because we always have what their format is that we usually have like a CBeebies star, and they're there for to please that sort of kid, the preschool and the schooling, early school age, and then an EastEnders star is kind of across the board, and then it's kind of me and Ian Kirkby, wonderful Ian Kirkby. I have to say it's broken my heart this year that I'm not going to be working with him anymore, because he's going to carry on the mantle in St Albans. And he'll do a terrific job. I know he will. He's one of my best friends. He's my best man. I miss him now. And I haven't done Panto. But we share a dressing room every year. In fact, we turned our dressing room in St Albans. I don't know if you've been to the arena.
Yes.
That our dressing room is the only dressing room plastered with comedy heroes. So we've wallpapered the wall and the ceiling with all the heroes of comedy that we've had over the years. And there's hundreds and hundreds there. and they've kept it, and I hope it remains. Although that theatre does need a lot of financial and TLC input into it. You know, it really does, the arena.
What prompted the move then from St Albans?
It's a good question. After being there nearly 10 years, I was really looking forward to doing Mother Goose there last year, and that was possibly going to be the end of it anyway. As in, I gave it 10 years in my mind, thinking, okay, 10 years, maybe go off and do another Panto, or maybe not do Panto for a year and take on something else. And it was Paul and Emily again who came to me and said, well, we talked about York actually for a little while for the Theatre Royal, and I thought, yeah, okay, that's right. It just felt right. It's not anything wrong with St Albans. I'm not walking away from St Albans. I'm still the patron of the theatre. I still am a patron of a couple of charities in St Albans that I want to be part of, you know, and want to carry on being. My heart is in St Albans, always will be. But it just felt like a right time. 10 years is a good round figure to do it, and then the pandemic hit, and of course, if ever there was a time for change, it would be during that. And it felt right. And obviously moving to Northampton, we happened to choose. We were in Bedford for nearly 5 years on a different boat, and then Nella, our daughter, came along, and we thought, okay, we need a bigger boat, to quote a phrase. So we commissioned a build of a new boat, and we were fully intending on staying in Bedford. But then one sunny afternoon, we came up to this little marina in Northamptonshire, and just thought, this is gorgeous. It's tiny, little family-run marina. It's beautiful, lovely family who run it. They really care. Amazing little community of people. That's the thing in the boating world. You're part of another family. I think that's it. That whole family thing has kind of led me through again. And we fell in love with it, and so we put a deposit down, and we've been here a year and a month and a half. I think we're going to be here for a good few years. So then Paul and Emily came to me and said, how far are you from the Royal and Durham in Northampton? I went, 10 minutes, why? Do you fancy doing it? And it was a bit of can I have a think for a bit? And they said yes. So I chatted with my wife, and we chatted to the kids, and then eventually chatted to St Albans and to the staff there, and it seemed okay. It seemed like the right thing to do. It doesn't feel a wrong thing. Let's put it that way. And we've been around the theatre. It's an amazing theatre, lovely staff. They were really welcoming, and we had a tour last week, in fact, and it's such an impressive building. I don't know if you've been there. Well, there are two venues, obviously. The Royal is just gorgeous and reminds me of the Duchess, where we did Morecambe. I think the same architect designed it, actually. And then the Derngate, which is very similar. I mean, not very similar at all. It's completely different. It's one of a few theatres in Europe that have got a completely modular system where the floor can raise up 4 or 5 feet or sink down, and they can bring in side boxes or take them away, and so your wing space can be nil or vast, so it can be an arena or it can be a theatre. It's one of those spaces that you just but also with those venues normally you think but it doesn't feel like a proper theatre. No, it really feels like a proper theatre. They've got proper stage, proper pit, proper boxes, proper circle and stalls, and it just feels really. And it also, even though it's quite large, I think it's about 1,300 seater, feels very intimate. Has that kind of wraps around you and makes you feel really, really welcome. So immediately when I walked in there, I thought, yeah, this feels right. So although I'm very, very sorry to leave St Albans, and there's so much affection there, I'm really excited about the next stage.
Could you see yourself playing a baddie?
Yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely. I mean, now when you know the genre, you know what role everyone does. I think my days of playing the Prince are gone, dear. But yeah, love to play a baddie. Yep, I think there was talk about it last year when when the pandemic happened. We were thinking about possibly doing a little pop-up pantos and having a cast of 4 or 5. And Paul suggested maybe maybe doing the baddie in one, and I thought, yeah, I'd be up for that. But again, I think once you've got the format there, once you've got that performance, it doesn't really matter what you say and what the character is. I think the secret is you make your performance what it is. So whatever your background, whatever people see you as, sometimes you can be surprised by an actor. I mean, I love it when producers cast against type, when you get an actor that you know has played a baddie in a soap opera, but then they come on and play a dame, or they play an ugly sister. That's great, because it's brilliant for the actor, because they get to go, see, I'm not just that. And it's great for the audience who go, wow, he can do that too. So that's really nice. It doesn't happen that often. But I'd love to play a baddie. But I don't think I ever will now. I think this is me now. I'm frocked up. Proper frocked. Yeah, I did Buttons as well after playing Dame. I think, but because Cinderella is such a, it doesn't really merit a Dame. So where do you put your Lynch where do you put your kind of pivotal character that's there for all the years? I played Buttons. I enjoyed playing Buttons actually, but the audience said, "Oh no, be nice to have Bob back as a Dame." In fact, I played Dandini as well a few years later, and same response, as in, "Oh, well, it's not the same as doing Dame." Which is weird. It's weird because I didn't really change anything really, but yeah, no, it was nice to play the different roles, and I loved playing all those Herman the Henchman and Pongo the PC Pongo and all that kind of stuff. They're great characters to play. And it's such a great gig to get, because you go in, you get all the big laughs, and then you go off and have a cup of tea for half an hour. Well, there's another act going on. It really is like that.
What's your favourite part then of Panto? Any favourite routines or?
Blimey! I mean, I'm a big fan of slapstick. So I'm on my phone. I've got certain comedy things that they're my go-to thing. So even if I've got no signal, I can just watch them. They're downloaded. I've got Norman Wisdom. I've got Will Hay. I've got some Ricky Gervais. I've got Laurel and Hardy. So there's a through line there. There's lots of slapstick going on, and I think that's what is very accessible, isn't it? It's so universal. Grandad and the kids can laugh at someone falling over, getting a pie in the face, getting squirted with water, getting spanked by a pan, whatever on your head. The sound effects and all that kind of stuff. It is funny. It's so accessible. It's so general and universal. So they're my favourites. But you can incorporate that in any part you play within the Panto anyway.
You like your slosh then?
Love a slosh. I know it's a nightmare. It goes everywhere. I mean, I did the 12 Days of Christmas routine. I think I'm the only person to not fall over during those scenes. And I was working with the likes of Phil Gallagher, Ian Kirkby, Andy Day, who just fall on their asses all the time. I mean, the audience love it. I mean, it's a fantastic routine. I mean, slapstick, like Laurel and Hardy, that whole kind of wordplay is brilliant. Wordplay, you can hone it and you can rehearse till the cows come home, and it will get a big laugh. But it won't get half the laugh that falling over will get, or hitting someone with something. It's weird, isn't it? We're a funny sort of race of beings that we laugh at it, but it's
suffering. Yeah.
Oh man, I was watching Old Bones of the River the other night, and it is a really dated film. Will Hay and Moore Marriott and Graham Moffat. And Moore Marriott does this thing, and bear in mind he was about 65 at the time, and playing the bloke who was like supposed to be 90, and he's just walking off the boat onto the land, and he slips and does the splits, and there's a sound effect, and it still makes me laugh out loud. I mean, actually make a noise. And sometimes I watch it in bed to fall asleep to, just as a comforting thing. My wife's fallen asleep. I'm like, I can't sleep. Okay, I'll stick Will Hay on, and there'll be several moments where I just lose it, and that's it. And it's a nice thing to fall asleep to when you're smiling, isn't it? When you're laughing. They were geniuses. Will Hay and Moore Marriott is one of the unsung heroes of our time. I think I really do. And he had 3 sets of teeth. So I'm working on that next. My favourite, I think, is Ask a Policeman. Yeah, Ask a Policeman. which Cannon Ball did a spin-off.
Boys
They
in
did
Blue, yeah.
Boys in Blue, which it didn't work. But also, I have watched it since, and although it's not the best made film ever, it still holds its own. It still has a little nod to the boys. I think probably it's my passion for Will Hay that makes me think, I like it.
Because he had
Yeah.
What
do you do? We'll put some beef in it. I am putting beef in it.
Well, he had, because he was an astronomer, wasn't he, as well?
Oh yeah,
And there's a star named after him, isn't there?
that's right. Yeah. And the telescope, the telescope still exists.
You don't see the like of that anymore, and I don't think anybody would even take the risk. Have you ever seen the Harry Enfield sketch?
Yes.
Where
they're in the prison.
Mr. Bank Robber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
What's that?
Yeah.
What's that? Safe. What you do? What's that? Jelly. Is there
What
a
do you mean?
party?
What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. It's all that fast talking pitter patter, but it's also physical. The whole yes. Good morning. What? Hey, what? Hey, what are you doing? You know, the energy behind it.
Peter Goodright, wasn't it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Will. And
That's right.
just and the fact that Harry Enfield wasn't the funny one in that sketch.
Very
Which
generous.
is generous of him, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I watched that, and I loved that. Oh, Mr. Bank, because it was Norbert Smith, wasn't it?
That's right,
Norbert Smith. Alive.
That's right,
I've
the
got
life of
DVD.
Norbert Smith. Yeah, I've got the DVD as well, actually. Yeah,
Beautiful.
but the original stuff is they're paying homage to the geniuses that were, and more Marriott. I mean, that whole bit where the tide goes high and the smuggler's cove. He plays his dad. He's older than Methuselah.
I
it's
just
gorgeous.
think those films. I mean, it's great as well. Talking Pictures.
Yeah, it's a great channel. Yeah, but I'm just remembering that there's that lovely moment in Ask a Policeman where the headless horseman comes along. Oh, I've seen him. Well, what have you seen? I've seen him there. Well, what? It's a man. Look at his head. Well, what about it? He ain't got one. Just the delivery is just
Stupid as well. Just
so
silly.
silly and brilliant. Oh, I could talk about it for hours.
Norman Wisdom. That's the other person for me.
Well,
Norman.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to see him in Torquay at the Princess, and it was on my, I think it was my 14th or 15th. I think it was 15th birthday. So 1985. And he'd just done a whole night, did his whole act with the grand piano and falling off and all that. And he must have been touching 75, something like that. He had a BMW, a really sporty, classic BMW, literally parked outside the stage door. And I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And he came out and he was so lovely and he signed my program. He said, "Happy birthday. I've still got it. I've still got it." He just signed Norman Wisdom. He didn't write anything else. And he was chatting. My mum said, "No, he wants to be an actor as well." And he sort of scuffed my hair and he said, "Keep going." It was just this awe, this energy about him. And I remember my mum being genuinely impressed. And my mum takes a lot of impressing. She still thinks the best thing I ever did was playing the lion in The Wizard of Oz when I was 13 years old at the junior theatre group, you know. And I've done, you know, Shakespeare and Burkoff and Chekhov and all that kind of stuff. And she goes, "Yeah, it's all right. Not as good as the lion in The Wizard of Oz." And she was mightily impressed by Norman. And you couldn't not be, could you, really? I mean, you must have seen him live.
Many times.
Yeah.
A wonderful man.
And kept going, but they took his car keys away, didn't they? Because he loved driving his cars, because he lived on the Isle of Man, didn't he? Where there's no speed limits. Yeah.
And when he says to that little kid, because he was a big head. That's the only thing. The only man on Desert Island Disc to have chosen 2 of his own records. Did you know that?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But he was a lovely singer. He was a great singer. Yeah. And when you hear "Don't laugh at me, 'cause I'm a fool," when you hear he suddenly took on this crooner voice after talking like that and going, "Oh, he's a group too." Brilliant.
I loved him. He was so funny.
Yeah. And of course, who said that? Someone just shout. "Hey, what? It's him, not me." Sometimes that happens here.
We'll have to. We'll be quiet.
It's all right. We'll just turn the microphones up.
There we go. Whispering Bob Harris.
Yes. Good evening. Hello. You're listening to the Panto podcast.
Well, this leads me on to my last question.
Yes.
Your dream pantomime. So you can be in it.
Yeah.
You can choose the production. You can choose the cast, alive or dead. You can choose the theatre.
Wow.
So,
Well,
who are you going to pick?
Okay, well, let's work backwards. The theatre would be the Palladium, because my parents, we didn't have a lot of money, but we did go and see Panto at the Palladium 4 or 5 times as a kid, and we sat right up in the gods, and we saw Victor Spinetti. Now, when he played King Rat, he invented the death scene of dying and then coming back on and dying again and coming back on and dying again. In fact, half of Act 2 was his death, let's face it. And so I think, yeah, it would be the Palladium. Victor Spinetti would definitely be in it. Am I casting this?
You're completely casting it, and you can be in it, or you can be sitting in the stalls watching it.
Oh, man. Wow. Would I be in it? I mean, to really enjoy pantomime as an audience member, that's a question. Yeah, I think I probably would enjoy it more watching, like, the geniuses do their stuff. Yeah. Oh God, I wasn't prepared for this question, Hayden.
I'm sorry.
Probably Norman Wisdom would be in there. So we can have anyone, right? Living or dead?
Anyone, living or dead.
Wow, this is a big cast list now. Yeah, I've got to really think about it.
Or maybe go for the production and then work that way.
Okay. Let's go with... well, do you know, I've never done Dick Whittington, so this will be the first time I've done Dick Whittington when I go to the Royal and Aldgate this year. So I can't choose that because I don't know it yet, although I've seen it a few times. Very much enjoyed it. What's the best panto? Oh, I think it's a bit like asking, what's your favourite song? You know, what's your favourite film? It will change depending on your mood. I know, you know, genre is the genre, but they're all a little bit different. You couldn't... Okay. All right, it's coming to me. I think it would be Aladdin, because I love the laundry scene. Who would do the laundry scene? Billy Dainty? That'd be nice. You've got to have a double act in there, haven't you? Dick and Dom. There we go. Work with Dick and Dom. Love them to bits. They don't get the credit they're due. They are... I think they're capable of way more than they think they're capable of, because they're such an established act together. They've got that kind of magic that Eric and Ernie had that you don't have to say about it. You don't have to say, oh, you say this and I'll say this. Yes, you need rehearsal, but there is that natural kind of, I'll just pick up where you inhale and take off the baton, you know. So I would like, as a challenge, I would like Dick and Dom to be the comedy double act in it. Yeah, but, oh God, I mean, Dame, I love Billy Dainty, I love Royce Mills. It's got to be Bill Owen, isn't it? Get Bill back to do it. There was something about him, because I don't think he wore a wig. I think he just kept on that little woolly hat throughout the whole thing. I might be wrong, but in my mind he did. And just great delivery. He had really, really good. He knew comedy timing. But I'll probably have to have half a dozen dames, to be honest.
You can have them on rotation.
Can we have a different dame in every scene?
Of course you can. It's your panto.
This is going to be a mishmash of panto, isn't it? I don't know. I'm getting there. You'll cut all this bit out.
No,
Hang
I
on.
won't.
Oh gosh, I mean, there's some great. Gemma Carlisle definitely would be in there, and do you know what? She is really funny. She and I'm all for going against convention. I'm all for sort of reinventing things, and introducing new formats within panto that's already established. It's not changing it. It's just I think we talked about this earlier about funny women. You know, I think there are so many funny women that haven't been given the chance to be funny, because we all think, oh well, no, but that's a bloke's role. It's rubbish. I think there are a huge abundance of really funny women that should play the idiot daughter, not the idiot son. So yeah, I'd probably cast Gemma because she's got really funny bones, great dry delivery. Oh wow, I mean, it's going to be a massive. I want Ian Kirkby in it because Ian is my comedy sidekick, and he has got such a knowledge of comedy all through the years. I mean, he takes a little bit of Will Hay, he takes a little bit of Ronnie Barker, all the little gems, Ronnie Corbett and Eric and Ernie is a lot of Eric. He does a great Eric, actually. In fact, if ever they brought Morecambe back, I'd probably say, Ian, do you want to play it first? Because it knackered me. So I'd quite like to watch him get knackered. This list could go on forever. I mean, some of the dancers that I've worked with are just incredible. Pit bands, I'd have as big a pit band as I could probably have. Full percussion section. I'm stalling now because I'm trying to think of some people I want to see up there. Such a good question. Because I know that the minute you leave, I'm going to say, why didn't I say him? Or her? Aladdin. It's Aladdin, isn't it? So, who's the...
Ebenezer as well.
Yeah. Well, could that be Victor Spinetti, you see? The archetypal... I know he's known for King Rat, but amazing. I think he'd be... Oh, no. I can do better than that, I'm sure. Why didn't you tell me about this? Because I've given it some thought. No, because I'll change my mind. As soon as you leave here, I'll go, can we change it to that?
I'll send you the recording over. There we go. So.
Yeah, you'll just go, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do this. I'll tell you who has to be Ebenezer. It's... There we go.
Do it. Send me it. And
designated actor. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Who do I love? I have to have an inspirational sip. Why don't you tell me who you'd have for a minute, and then I'll be thinking about who I would have.
I will show you my Dream Panto cast list from the other Christmas.
Because you've got to have a straight man as well. You've got to have a really good straight man.
For my this was my cast list because the other Christmas somebody made up this guy called Lorenzo made up my Dream Panto as a poster. Have a look at that.
Wowza.
Cinderella, Dinah Dawes.
And you got Norman, yeah.
Norman.
Larry.
Carrie.
Stanley Unwin. That is a great shout.
That's Baron Hardup, thank you.
That is a really good shout. Hudson and Halls.
2 New Zealand gay chefs. I don't know if you ever saw them. They were quite big in the 80s.
No.
They used to bicker. They were
Cary Grant?
Cary Grant as Prince Charming. With Larry,
Yes.
Because why not? Larry would have been amazing.
Okay.
But
I know who I want now. I'm not going to say what parts I want them to play. I just want them in it. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
And this will lead on to a conversation we'll have off mic. So, okay, I don't care what part you put them in. Obviously, I would have Eric Walcombe and Ernie Wise. This is a big cast. I would have Les Dawson. And for a little smattering of anarchy, I would have Rick Mayall.
Never did Panto either.
No, he could have smashed it, couldn't he?
Anarchic Panto.
Just coming on and shouting, woof!
Oh, not Rick the Poet. The people's...
No, I'd have him,
Poet.
Lord
Flashheart.
Flashheart, yeah. Blackheart? No, Flashheart, yeah.
Flashheart. Flash.
Woof. Yeah, he'd be good. He'd be good. Definitely Rick Mail. And I think probably Eric Sykes somewhere in there. I'd have Victoria Wood. I'd have Irene Handel. And just, I think I'd have Dinah Sheridan as the Queen or something like that. Mm-hmm. All yesteryears. Oh, no, not all, because we've got some modern people in there as well. Some younger people too. Yeah. I think I'm happy with that. Can you cast them?
Of course.
And then I'll go through it and go, no, that's wrong.
I've actually got one more question for you. Sorry.
Yeah.
That little boy that you were when you saw Bill Owen, do you think he'd be impressed with watching Bob Golding on stage now?
Wow. He'd probably be a bit surprised and possibly even a little bit embarrassed. Impressed? If I'm honest, I don't think I'm ever impressed at anything I do. I think, like I said earlier, that there are certain jobs that you do, you come away and go, yeah, that was all right. But mostly, I'm a very harsh critic of myself, and I can't bear listening to myself or watching myself on anything. I just try to sort of take on the whole kind of get on there, do it, be as generous as I can, really, I suppose, in to the audience and to my fellow actors and crew, and I think impressed is probably too strong a word that I've ever felt with myself. I've had moments of pride, I've had moments of kind of going, yeah, oh, that's nice. Getting the Olivier Award was nice, and that's sat on the shelf over there, and I do dust it occasionally. Not often, but I do, and when I do, it's kind of, there is a little bit of, yeah, you're all right, mate, you're okay. And even if it all goes to pot tomorrow, it's that's all right, that's okay. I've had a good ride.
Well, Bob, thank you for taking part in the Panto podcast.
Cheers, mate. Can we end with a dead cat story? Because we started with one.
Cheers, Bob.
Thank you very much.
The Panto Podcast.